Hey, hi. Welcome to tonight's installation of our show. We're still working on a name of some sort. We're working on all of it, but we're getting there. Um, as always, I'm Hannie. We have Jerry, my co host, with me this evening, and we have our friend Terry Schumacher with us this evening. Yay! You've heard about us, but we'll just go through real quick. I'm Hannie. I'm former chair of the Kitsap County Democrats, former vice chair of the 26th District Democrats. And just to let you know, uh, Jerry and I don't represent the Democratic Party, but we have spent enough time with the Democratic Party, we might know something. So just wanted to mention that. Jerry, after you. Introduce yourself.
And thank you, and good evening again, Hanny. Hi, Terry. It's so good to have you here.
Yes.
Thank
I'm
you.
Jerry Hebert. Currently, I'm the secretary for the 23rd Legislative District and a member of the executive board.
The
I
Democrats.
started in, yes, the Democrats. That's right, the Democrats. I forget to tell that because it's obvious, isn't it?
Right.
I
But
mean,
yeah.
let's be realistic. I can't picture one of my Republican brothers to
Right. There you go.
it,
All right, carry on.
I do have to say though that it is kind of important that I point out that I do not speak for the 23rd Legislative District. This also is not an endorsement process for the 23rd Legislative District. But I have opinions and I have my perspective. I started in politics when I was first part of President John F. Kennedy's campaign in 1960, when I was licking envelopes and stuffing them and mailing shit for his campaign. So I've been through a lot. I worked in Washington, D.C. with Bill Clinton. I've been around and here in beautiful Kitsap County. I was a Washington State Human Rights Commissioner, appointed to 2 terms. Uh, like Hanny, been around the block. So what I say is about what I know and what I experience, not about the Democrats or the 23rd Legislative District. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Terry, tell us about you.
Well, that was a lot to follow. So now I feel like, hey, it's just me. I'm Jerry. And we're here in my salon. I just finished working for the day. So that's why you see the fluorescent lights overhead. So, yeah, I'm just passionate about North Kitsap school districts, about our school in particular, the students in particular. I've been involved throughout my niece and nephew, my 2 kids. I've got a sophomore at North Kitsap High School right now. So, I've spent years through the pickup line and years through the PTSA and years scouring through board minutes and agendas. So that's why I came on tonight to see if we could talk a little bit. But I gotta say, like, you guys have said the nicest things about me. Like, I wanted to stall a little bit in coming in because, like, yeah, thank you for all the kind words that you guys have said about me, and I'm very honored to be here tonight.
Oh, hey, thank you, and thank you for coming in and being one of our first guests to talk with us. So, yeah, I had met you years ago when you were a candidate running for North Kitsap School Board. Just real quick, do you have any words of advice for candidates who are just starting out right now?
I would advise them to seek help a lot faster than what I did. I know that there's a team of people that are just waiting, with their tennis shoes to canvas, with their pens to write letters, with funding as
Right.
well. Was a huge, like, I didn't think I could raise a dime, and I'm amazed at how many people came through to support me. So to any
Mm-hmm.
of the candidates out there that's looking at this, I would definitely say to reach out for help sooner than later, because everybody has a vested interest in how our schools go. And you represent movement, not it's not just you, it's the values that you bring forth and the ethics and our voices, because we can't all be on the board. So
Right.
I just want them to not have such a hard time that I did.
Yeah, yeah. The only thing I ran for were basically things in party leadership. I mean, I've thought about running for elected office, but some of that is a bit overwhelming and scares the beans out of me. And oh, I have there's a lot of work and effort and meeting people that goes into that. And I that's where I think I would probably get the most anxious about it all. What about you,
Okay.
It's
Jerry?
when I was a human rights commissioner, I had the enviable task of also being our legislative liaison, and had to do some testifying in front of the Senate and in the House, and had to meet with people and give speeches and the whole 9 yards. And it can be really intimidating, but after the first time that you stand in front of an audience and you tell them how you feel, what's in your heart, what you're about, suddenly you realize I don't need a speech. I just need to speak from my heart.
Right.
And somehow that always seems to work. So it becomes fun. Campaigning can be a lot of fun, but only if you've got the help early enough so the planning isn't stressful.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely having additional people to help you get the campaigning done is such a valuable asset, I think.
I admire our local candidates because you're talking to your neighbors. You're
Right.
talking to people that you may not know, but you know what you have in common.
Right.
The issues aren't quite as unclear. You just have several approaches, and
Hmm.
it's fun to hear those kinds of discussions take place in our community. I think it's like watching football. I love it.
Right. Same. We've talked about that before too, really. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's discuss why Terry's here. Let's discuss North Kitsap School District. Starting off, I am the only one of all of us who lives in South Kitsap. Jerry lives in Paulsbo. Terry lives in Paulsbo-ish. Yeah.
Yep. Well, yeah.
All right, there we go. But yeah, so I know what challenges we have here in South Kitsap, and I know that in my previous time as chair, I have certainly heard many concerns and history of North Kitsap School District. So I was hoping that maybe Terry could tell us a little bit about that history and where we're at right now going into election 2025. And we have two positions open on North Kitsap School
One and
District.
three.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's 1 and 3.
1-3.
You're right. All right. Well, take it away, Terry.
Okay. Well, I was it I'm glad to see, I'm really thrilled to see how many people threw their hat in the ring on filing week, that we had 8 candidates for 2 seats. Seat 3 has been a sleepy seat for a while. Last year, that last election cycle, that ran unopposed. So to have 4 candidates file for that, I was really happy. I mean, I think it's definitely reflective of the concern that our community has for how the direction and the leadership that our schools have. When the elections, like we mentioned, that I ran 2 years ago, and there were 13 of us filing week for 3 seats, and 11 of us went into the primary after 2 had withdrawn, and it looks like 2 have withdrawn at this time as well. So we've got 6 people, or 5, sorry, 6, yeah, 6 headed in. Wait a minute, there's how many do we have right now?
Right.
Six. Yeah, headed into that seat, right? Because we're not sure if one has officially withdrawn or not. So that's why I was like, oh, do we have five? Do we have six? But I'm happy to see that it's going to be contested, that there's going to be some discussion, that we're going to get to learn about these candidates. So right now, out of the 5 board positions, 4 of those are right wing, or they are definitely in the right. And then we only have one that's a Democrat. So, 80 to 20 is not really reflective of our community, because North Kitsap sits about 60% Democrat, 40%. Right. So I would like to see us get some balance back to that seat as well. And we could do that with these 2 seats. We've got, it looks like there's 2 independents, 2 Democrats, and 2 Republicans coming up into this election. We've not had a lot of transparency with this board, and that goes back to the previous superintendent. This board does a little bit better job of talking about the items that they're doing, but there's been, and I know that you're going to have another speaker, I believe, on here to talk a little bit more about the hiring of the superintendent, but that was kind of misled to the community as well. Right now, we seem to have a mass exodus of principals. So I'm hoping that we have a board that is going to be more interactive with our staff to find out if that's just natural attrition, if it's a good thing for our district to kind of clean house, or if this is a sign of things not going well with our administration. But the only way that we're going to know that is if we have a board that will, they really have to get into the schools. They really have to ask the questions and listen. And we've not historically seen that in years. I would say that's probably been, I'd say a good 10 years that the board has been kind of sequestered away and not really wanting to talk to the public and serve the public. They just want to hear what they hear from the admin staff.
Right. So, question
Well,
for
isn't there,
me.
but
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jerry.
but wasn't there a controversy a while ago with the superintendent saying, board is restricted from talking to staff. You can't go into the talk to our principals. You need to go through him or go through her.
Yeah,
It was.
Yeah, you're correct. She was very clear on that she, and she had two military service members, which I was kind of going to touch into that a little later under candidates, but military structure, because we had Rick Eckert and Mike Desmond, who are both military, serving on the board at that time. Right. Military chain of command, would have our superintendent, the employee of the board, which is true, they are, and it's like their number one job is to evaluate that superintendent and help develop her, right, or him. It just happens to be that the last 3 have been females, so I'm going to use. But in the military way, they think that they're they kind of fly above that level, and so they're not going to hear anything that the superintendent is not going to pass on, because they hired her to do a job, so she should do her job. And if it gets out of hand, but I would say that a vote of no confidence from 2 unions within our district is definitely a situation she couldn't have controlled, and she should have gotten into that. Mm-hmm. So she came out very clearly and was like, nope, you're not to engage in the public. That's my job. You stay in your job. And this superintendent, I was at a board meeting when she said, if you want to go into the schools, let me know and I'll take you with me. That's a softer way of delivering that same message of, you're not invited to go into schools unless I take you. And if you're a board member or if you're a candidate going into a school, now this was when I ran, right. Step foot in a school, Evans was on the phone to you. And I had a kid enrolled in school. I mean, I couldn't go anywhere within North Kitsap High School that my daughter wasn't like actively enrolled in that I mean, actively involved in that situation at the time. So like I went into the library and all, and it went nuts because I walked into the library.
Wow. So
Well,
my,
we had
I'm
when
sorry.
I ran. I used to be the manager of the college program out of Port Gamble, and hired our teachers and did all of that work and associated with the school district. And we still had a heck of a time trying to identify where funds were going that were specifically designated for the tribes. The only reason I brought that up is I don't know whether it's been resolved or not. It doesn't matter. But at the time, they were really pushy about being secretive with would provide us budgets but no specifics, would never show where the income went, would never explain what their DEI program was if they had one. It was that instinctive fear, I think, of exposure or controversy or whatever they're afraid of. Um, is that still going on? I mean, do you still feel that way? Is that become culturally intrinsic?
Yeah, Jerry, that's really heartbreaking because, you know, I would say I'm trying to remember what's the last government to government that I watched and years ago, where the tribal with the Squamish tribe and the Squam tribe, they were both separate at the time in their government to government interactions, and then they became combined.
Right.
During Evans years, they separated again. I think they do some of their meetings combined now by choice instead of being forced, but they're asking for the same things every single time. Like these are small concessions. It's not like they're asking for things that would take a lot of manpower. Like for instance, they want their mentors, which I believe they call them coaches. They want them to have access to their students' records, and that seems to be something that we cannot get accomplished for the board. I've heard them ask, I mean, for the school district, I've heard them also ask for like where does the funds come from as well, like what are they doing, because of the tax structure, the way it works. If you're a tribal member, the school,
Right.
the state sends money in, and they've asked for that. I've heard the chairman of the Squamish tribe ask for that report and still not get it. I think they might have sent it to them the day of one of the board meetings. And again, these are things that I think that should just be reported to them all the time. I mean, the government to government program, the law actually states that, you know, anything that interacts with them, anything that affects their students, anything that's a decision, they need to be involved in it. They need to be stakeholders. You know, I still feel like they're on the outside. I think it's improved. Don't get me wrong. I think it has improved, but I don't think it's there yet. And I think there's a long way that there's a lot of stuff that they could do to start having them having some of the requests fulfilled.
Seems we've had we used to have a board member that was from the Squamish tribe or from the Port Gamble Sklallam tribe, Marie Hebert. She's a cultural director, was the cultural director out at Port Gamble Sklallam. Obviously, no relation to me whatsoever, but because of the similarity of our names, we got to know each other pretty well. Her husband's first name is Jerry as well, so it's
Wow.
there's two of us. But she sat on the school board, and one of the things that she had mentioned was that she felt like she was not only not welcome as a school board member, but also was never really heard from. They they wouldn't make room for her, so to speak. So I'm kind of worried that I'm not hearing a cultural change in that pence that I can't say propensity, but uh, tendency to hold those cards to your chest, and only those that are on the inside get to have voice on the outside. So it's I don't know what I'm asking your opinion, Terry. It's my observation. It's your skill. I
Okay, so I'll give Davenport credit for this for sure. That when the facilities committee opened, she held for the first time, she held a space for both the Suquamish tribe and the Slalom tribe to put a representative on there, which I thought was a great start. We need to see that on every committee, right? We need to see that we need to see committees come back, first of all, but the facilities and the finance committee definitely needs to have those. Why don't we have a permanent liaison to the board, assigned, or they assign them, but to have that place right there. I would love to have seen, I'd love to see him run. The last one that we had as representative from Suquamish tribe was Cindy Webster. So we have had recently, we've had, school board members and representation that way, but it would sure be nice if we had more of that as well. I think we tend to run the same people step forward, the same demographic, of what steps forward to run. It's very hard to run a campaign. I understand how difficult it is to lay your finances out, lay your personal. I mean, the time that it takes, your mental energy that it takes. I don't know if maybe as a party we're not giving enough support to BIPOC members, marginalized community members to run. But I think the more we can get marginalized community members into those leadership positions, the better representation they'll have.
Right.
And that's one of the things that Hannie was saying too, and you worked on for a while, was how we keep the party involved in the entity, because the party has to know what's going on at the school board on a regular basis and have a plan for participation. We don't have one, not that I know of, anyway. So it really does take us getting our heads together and saying this is what we need to change in the community, because it's really a value, not a law or a regulation.
What I miss?
Yeah.
Hannie?
Hi, slight things happening around me. Sorry about that. We're talking about all these different things. A question that I really wanted to get ironed out here too was, what is the duty of a school board director on the school board? What are they typically generally responsible for in that position?
Yeah, they set policies and procedures. They approve curriculum, and they are overseeing the superintendent. So I was really surprised when one of their major responsibilities was to hire and supervise the superintendent, that they just kind of threw up their hands on the last appointment, and they just slid Davenport right in. We were given a survey after the fact that the community came out on Parent Square. They sent out a survey asking what qualities we wanted in a superintendent, and they thought they might forego in a search committee. And then they didn't do the search committee. So there again, that's where you can bring those marginalized voices up there. I mean, I have nothing against Davenport. I know my want for a superintendent search doesn't mean that, I think she's a poor candidate for her job. I don't. I just think we owed it to the district, especially after the trauma we had just gone through with the previous superintendent, right? We had a lot of, I think every marginalized group had something to say about how they felt about school and about the policies that she had set up. And then, of course, we had that, we made national news, with how things went down. I just think maybe we even needed to take time. They could have hired in a firm that puts interim superintendents in to help soothe their district and heal, and then go into the next superintendent. I felt like it was probably a little bit rushed. And to be honest with you, I feel it was lazy that they didn't do their due diligence and look hard for a superintendent, and especially an experienced superintendent, one who's been one before. Even going back and seeing if we could hire one of our old ones back, like, Medina, hire him back and see if we could just get some experience and some just some time before we got into a commitment, because as we sit here today, so all this happened January of last year. We
Right.
put our superintendent on suspension, basically, and then we
Right.
put Davenport officially in the role. Then she got her role would have kept her contract would have kept her in that position until the summer, and at that point they gave her a whole nother year, like in somewhere in that spring they extended her contract out another year. And when asked about it, they wanted to give themselves time to do a search and to find a new superintendent. So now, as she said, she's got her 3-year contract already in place, so she'll be with us for quite some time.
Right.
Again, I don't have a problem with her in particular. I have a problem with the process that, for that being all 5 of their jobs to do this, and they just took the easy way out and committed us to a superintendent without even seeing what else is out there. Um,
Right. I had seen that, and you know, um, I'm sure that was covered in. Was it covered in the North Kitsap Herald, maybe, or Kitsap Sun? Did either of those entities cover the process to get to the new superintendent in North Kitsap School District? Do you
I
know?
don't think they did. I'm trying to remember what the timeline was of when we were given the survey, when they hired her, when they announced she had the contract, when they extended her out to 3 years. I mean, all this has been, within the
Yeah.
last year. Wait a minute, was it the last year? Yeah, help me out with this timeline, guys.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah,
I want to say last the last election season was when the sign incident,
yeah,
TM,
that
uh,
was
that
January,
that
no,
took
November.
place. Yeah, and
And then it
yeah,
went to court in January, or she was, I don't know what, in January she was placed on leave, so it went in the February. So our
right,
election happened in November. January was the sign incident. February was the bond vote that failed miserably. It fell by 70%. And then and Rachel was put in at that time. So yeah, all that stuff, that's like hitting fast forward for sure,
right,
to sit contract for 3 years right now on a superintendent.
right. So
You know,
yeah, it,
you did say something that I wasn't aware of that kind of concerns me. The
sure,
school board approves curriculum.
Yeah, they approve the curriculum. So it's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah,
Um, so every school district sends one representative forward to the state as their voice. And so it's really disproportionate when you think about our population, right? You could be in Eastern Washington, have these microscopic school districts, or you could be in the city of Seattle. Seattle School District has 50,000 students, and they send one person as their voice to the state to vote on curriculum.
wow,
North Kitsap, we have 5,000 students, and we send one voice, and that one voice has been conservative. She's our most conservative voice on the board, and the person who preceded her was was conservative too. So, even though we're 60% Democrat in the state, our 80 to 20% board for Republicans is sending a conservative voice forward. Now, that position lasts for a solid year.
right,
So she could be reassigned in November, but that state board, well, I mean, the state superintendent group, I'm sorry, superintendent, why did I say that? The state representative, the legislative representative goes to the state, and together they vote on the curriculum. The curriculum is then brought back to the school district, and the board themselves will say if they're going to adopt that curriculum or not. We saw that in that how many years ago was it, that sex ed revision that
Right.
came out that was quite controversial. And, people who hadn't read it were spreading lies about what was really within that curriculum. And our board decided not to adopt half. I mean, it wasn't half. We'd have to get Beth on here because she served at that time.
Right.
But they didn't adopt the full curriculum. They cut out the lower years from it. So they can adapt what they want to. They can,
Sure.
it's at the will of the board.
Yeah.
Do
So
they have they ever reviewed rubrics for those curriculums and reviewed what the outcomes are expected to be?
They did during Catherine All and Beth Worthington's time. Yeah. In Beth Worthington's time, they actually brought the community in as well. And we had a say in
Yeah,
that. But that's been how many years? I think
yeah.
he was president, but it's been a few years.
wow. Gosh.
Interesting.
I am blown away at all this knowledge. I mean, for me as your standard parent, grandparent, I mean, I know that when I was a parent, I I lived in a small we lived in a small Texas town where everything was, the school building was just one big building, but elementary here. Yeah. And so when they did reviews of textbooks and curriculum, I was the I was the nerdy parent that went in and read through everything and asked all sorts of incredible questions, and I'm sure that they, by 5 p.m., were more than happy to see me leave. But I mean, are those things that parents can do to be involved? Are there things that parents can do to be involved? I guess is my question, and what does that look like? I guess.
Well, they certainly can be, but the question is, what will the school allow them? Right?
Right. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. Definitely.
There's been times where they did a screening of a new way to teach our youngest learners at the firehouse, and that was kind of like an informational thing. But there was no point in that evening where you could actually weigh in, formally write something. They didn't take a pulse of the community. There's definitely ways to bring the community in, and there's ways to keep them out. And I think
Yeah.
it makes a far more efficient meeting for them when they don't engage the public. I think our teachers get to weigh in on the curriculum. I think their union gives them that opportunity
I
to
hope so.
review curriculum. I know
Hmm.
that they've made it hard for them recently. Like they've left a copy of it at the district office, and they have to get to the district office to review it. Again, there's ways to make things easier, and there's ways to make things quick.
Well, it doesn't sound like a lot of positive things are changing very fast at all, because it's been easily 20 years since I was teaching, and
Hmm.
this sounds like the same stuff we were going through then.
Mm.
And this is sad. It truly is sad. Um, I'm kind of torn because the public, today's day and age, parents are. I don't know how you can have a single parent household in the first place. Frankly,
Right.
you've got if you don't have two sources of income, you can't provide a household.
Right.
It's ridiculous how busy it is for parents today. I'm that that piece of the voice, we have to find better ways to reach out to those parents and provide for them, because we can't expect them to set their schedule according to a schedule that isn't friendly to. We've got to make sure that we're getting their input and their their suggestions in a positive way that also provides legitimate feedback. Yeah, I don't know. I just think with today's technology and with the professionalism of our teachers, I'm certain that a board that was truly dedicated to our children and tomorrow that these wouldn't be the problems we'd be talking about. We'd be talking more about how we can add crafts or add skill development in electronics manufacturing and doing hands-on education. I'm a firm believer that exploratory education is the way to do it. And I think those would be the issues we'd want our school board to be discussing, not issues of are we getting our budget out on time. That should be automatic. That shouldn't
Right.
be the heart of the discussion.
So
Well,
these are all like really important issues to, I'm sure, a lot of parents. And, I think more than anything, these are all the reasons that, if possible, try to tune in for some candidate forums. And if you're not able to catch them in person, definitely try to. I know that some of them are recorded and you can go back and watch them online. Ask friends, ask neighbors, ask Terry if you go by her business in Paulsbo. Uh, write to Jerry and me if you'd like. Definitely, but this
Oh,
year
no,
now
no, no.
more than
Right to Hanny. No, no, no. Right to Hanny. Wait a minute. Hanny's over here.
yeah,
Right to Hanny. And if it's a question for me, she'll get it to me. You write to me, you might
absolutely.
never get.
Absolutely. But, more than anything, now that we've heard from Terry and, it still sounds like there's a lot of healing for North Kitsap to do right now. And every opportunity that there is to learn about those who want to represent you and learn about, what they're bringing to the table and how can they help our kids thrive and survive and do great things. Those are all important questions. So, um, yeah, gosh, Terry, any final thoughts from you?
yeah, we didn't even get to the mental health piece, the funding that's been cut nationally on
Right.
that. There's so much more. There's just we just touched on even back issues. We didn't get to bullying. When you said it takes. How do single parents do it? A lot of people don't do it.
Right.
There's a lot of kids that are unhoused right now with working parents and they're unhoused and there's a lot of needs that are going unfulfilled. There's a lot of just fitting kids to a mold. And the more we hear from frankly Republicans coming back and saying we're just going to study on reading, writing, and arithmetic, we're getting back to the basic. It's like you can't do that in this day and time. You
Right.
cannot focus on just the academics when you have kids coming through the doors that are so broken that maybe aren't fed. We're cutting free lunch, not Washington State, but nationally. We're
Right.
cutting free lunches, we're cutting a breakfast. If you think that's not going to affect the way kids learn and your fed kid, maybe your kid come, how do you think
Right.
that interacts when you've got a kid who's not stable there that day? And, as a community, we really need to look out for our most fragile kids, our most fragile
Yes.
families. We have to put structures in place. And I'm looking to the board right now and the candidates who are running to put those guardrails up before it's too late.
Yeah,
Amen.
definitely. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think the North Kitsap School Board race is going to be definitely one to watch and one to really take note of what our candidates there are saying and, the things that they bring to the table and what's important to them in representing our families here in Kitsap, specifically North Kitsap here. So, yeah. Well, would you be up for coming and hanging out with us again, Terry? And we can talk more on other issues that are facing our kids today?
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, these are issues that are not only touching North Kitsap kids. I am quite certain that some of those very issues are touching Central Kitsap, South Kitsap, even some of our local college students here. So, wow, what
No,
a bunch of things we
I
can
I
discuss.
can testify that it affects our college kids
Mm-hmm.
when we have to spend all of our money on remedial classes in order to get them up to college level because our schools aren't doing a good enough job. So yeah, I can't wait for Terry to, we've got quality teachers. Why don't we have quality graduates?
Yeah, yeah. So, I want to thank Terry for coming and talking with us today.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you so very much. And thank you for coming in for a couple years with me back when I was chair to let our members and precinct committee officers know about North Kitsap School Board issues and what specifically were areas of opportunity for our kids in North Kitsap and levies and bonds and that. So I want to thank you again for coming in. I can't claim to know everything, but other people who are very well informed always help. So thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We will see everybody, I guess, in when
Next
I guess
next week.
Thursday next
Next
week.
week. We are coming back next week. We are talking to a candidate for Bremerton City Council. Michael Simons will be hanging with us. So
I do want us to put in the parking lot. We do need to talk about our special ed needs in our
yes,
schools, and
yes,
I've got an interesting question about lawsuits and insurance paying
yeah.
lawsuits
All
as
right.
a result of our special ed kids instead of serving. So yeah,
All right.
I can't.
Okay, we will do that. Terry,
Yeah,
thank you again for coming and hanging out with us.
Thank
Everybody
Terry,
you.
you're the
else,
greatest.
Thank you.
thank you to our subscribers. Thank you to everybody who comes by. We actually did receive some feedback this week, so thank you to everybody who has given us important feedback. Keep that coming. We're developing this. Have a great night. Stay tuned, and we'll be back next week. Bye.
Bye.
Da 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 da.
Are we off the air now?
Yes.